Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Noir Intellect. I'm your host, Victor Blackwood. If you enjoy mysteries, hidden clues, and uncovering the truth, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Leave it in the comments below. Now, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. The mystery begins now. Chapter 1. The ticket found in a pocket at 8:47 on a wet Thursday evening. A man telephoned Nero Wolfe and asked whether a train ticket could prove that someone intended to commit murder. I was in the office on West 35th Street. Wolfe was in the dining room with Fritz, attending to roast duck and a sauce that had occupied more of his morning than most criminal cases. The telephone rang twice. Nero Wolfe's office. Archie Goodwin speaking. The voice was male, low, and carefully controlled. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I must speak with Mr. Wolfe immediately." Daniel Mercer was president of Mercer Atlantic Shipping and wealthy enough to make newspaper editors check their spelling. "What is the emergency?" "I need him to examine a train ticket. You can bring it tomorrow." "Tomorrow may be too late." "For the train, for me." That moved the call from peculiar to professional. "What ticket?" "A one-way first-class ticket on the Hudson Limited. Grand Central to Albany. It leaves at 11:40 tonight." "On it?" "No, John Carter." "Who is John Carter?" A pause came over the wire. "That is what Mr. Wolfe must determine. He gave me an address on East 72nd Street, but refused to leave his house." "Someone is watching me," he said. "Tell Mr. Wolfe that John Carter must not board that train." The line went dead. I carried the message to the dining room. Wolfe listened with the expression of a monarch informed that the drawbridge had fallen during dessert. "Has he retained me?" he asked. He hung up before reaching the fee. "Then he has preserved both his money and my evening." He sounded frightened. Fear is common. Good judgment is not. At 9:16 the telephone rang again. Inspector Kramer told me Daniel Mercer was dead. 25 minutes later, I entered Mercer's grey stone house. Kramer waited in the entrance hall with an unlit cigar and the look of a man who had found trouble carrying my identification. "What did Mercer say?" I gave him the conversation. He led me upstairs. Mercer's study was dark wood and polished brass. He sat behind a wide desk, head tilted toward one shoulder, iron grey at the temples and dressed for dinner. A glass of water stood near his right hand. Beside it were a silver pillbox, an open appointment book, and a folded newspaper. Nothing appeared disturbed. If murder had entered the room, it had behaved like a guest. Dr. Haskell, the medical examiner, pointed to Mercer's lips. "Possible poison," he said. "There is irritation in the mouth and throat. We will know more after examination." "The secretary found him at 9:05, Kramer added. He rang the desk bell, collapsed, and tried to speak. "What did he say?" "The passenger. Then he died." A detective emptied Mercer's evening coat onto a white cloth. Wallet, keys, handkerchief, 2 envelopes, and a railway ticket in a pale sleeve. The ticket was exactly what Mercer had described. Grand Central to Albany. 1 first-class fare on the Hudson Limited. Departure 11:40. It had been purchased for cash that afternoon at a travel office on Madison Avenue. The passenger name was John Carter. On the sleeve someone had written, "Compartment B, car 9. Hold until 10:45. Kramer looked at me. "Who is Carter?" He saved that for Wolfe. Laura Vance, Mercer's private secretary, appeared in the doorway. She was about 30, dark-haired, pale, and composed with effort. She had worked for Mercer 7 years. At 8:30 he dismissed everyone from the study, and at 8:45 told her he was telephoning Wolfe. "Who was in the house?" I asked. "Mrs. Mercer, his son, Richard, his business partner, Samuel Doran, and his attorney, Philip Grant. They had been discussing the sale of a shipping terminal, peacefully. No, his wife wanted him to retire. Richard expected to control the company. Doran opposed the buyer. Grant advised delay." "What about John Carter?" I asked. Laura's face remained still. "I have never heard the name." "Did Mercer expect a visitor?" "Not officially. Did he receive anything unusual?" "A messenger delivered a cream envelope at 7:15. Mr. Mercer opened it privately. The empty envelope was in the wastebasket. Whatever had been inside was gone. The appointment book lay open to Thursday. Most entries concerned ships, insurance, and the terminal sale. At 10:30 that night, Two penciled initials had been partly erased, JC. Beneath them, pressure marks from a missing sheet formed 3 words, "Ticket confirms identity." "Mercer's handwriting?" Kramer asked. Laura nodded. The door opened, and a tall young man entered before the officers outside could stop him. He had Mercer's grey eyes and none of his restraint. "I'm Richard Mercer. Why is Goodwin searching my father's desk?" "He is not," Kramer said. "I am." Richard looked at me. "Was my father's call about the ticket?" Kramer's head turned. "What ticket?" Richard realized too late that he had volunteered something useful. He admitted seeing the railway sleeve during dinner. Mercer had asked whether anyone knew a man named John Carter. Margaret Mercer said no. Grant called it a common name. Samuel Doran laughed. "Why?" I asked. He said John Carter was the sort of name used by a man who did not want one. Richard said his father became nervous after opening the envelope, made 2 calls, then locked himself in the study. The door was unlocked when Laura entered at 9:05. Kramer asked who had keys. Laura had one. Margaret Mercer had another. Philip Grant could a duplicate through Mercer's office. Richard denied possessing one. Samuel Doran had no official access. We questioned the others in the library. Margaret Mercer denied knowing John Carter. Philip Grant said Mercer had delayed the terminal sale after confidential cargo and insurance records disappeared. "Could John Carter have taken them?" I asked. "I have no knowledge that John Carter exists." Samuel Doran, broad and sun-darkened, admitted arguing with Mercer over missing company money. "Were you stealing?" I asked. "No." "Did Mercer have proof?" "He had suspicion. It was his favorite possession." At 10:35 Kramer received a preliminary report. Poison had been found in the water glass and on one of Mercer's heart tablets. Laura said Mercer usually filled the pillbox himself, though she had collected the prescription the day before. Everyone at dinner had passed through the study before 8:30. I telephoned Wolfe and reported the poison, the 4 suspects, the erased appointment, the missing message, and the ticket. "Where was it purchased?" he asked. "A Matter Travel office at 3:15. Cash." "By whom?" "We do not know." "Then find out." "Kramer has detectives." "Mr. Kramer has many detectives." "That is not the same as having you." "Are you taking the case?" "No one has hired me." Mercer tried. He failed. Death interrupted him. Death often interrupts poor planning. He was silent for a moment. "Archie, return with Inspector Kramer and the ticket." At 11:20 Kramer and I entered the brownstone. Fritz took our coats. Wolfe sat behind his desk with beer at hand. Kramer placed the ticket, sealed in evidence glassine, beneath the office lamp. Wolfe studied it. "Compartment B, car 9, he said. "A private accommodation held until 10:45. Yet no passenger claimed it." "The train has not left," Kramer said. "It will shortly. You think someone will appear?" "No. Whoever purchased this ticket knows Mercer is dead." "How?" "Because the purchaser is the murderer, the intended passenger, or a person closely connected with both," I said. "Mercer told me John Carter must not board." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Did he say the ticket was for Carter?" "No." "Then you assume too much." Kramer planted both hands on Wolfe's desk. "What else is a ticket under a man's name for?" "Identification." Wolfe tapped the glassine without touching it. Mercer wrote that the ticket confirmed an identity. A ticket purchased for cash proves little about a passenger unless the false name was previously agreed upon. John Carter was not necessarily a traveler. The name was a signal to identify the sender, I said. "Yes." Mercer expected someone to present the ticket or refer to it as proof that he was the person invited to the secret meeting at 10:30. Kramer frowned. "But the ticket was in Mercer's pocket." "Precisely." Wolfe closed his eyes. "The message delivered with it has vanished. The murderer removed the written explanation, but deliberately left the ticket. He wanted the police to search for a passenger, rather than ask why Mercer was meeting a man under an agreed false name." "Then who was coming at 10:30? I asked. "That remains to be earned." Wolfe instructed Kramer to show the ticket office clerk photographs of everyone in Mercer's house, search compartment B before departure, and determine whether any luggage or document had been placed aboard. Kramer objected to receiving orders and left at 11:32 to obey them. I remained by the globe, watching rain slide down the windows. A poisoned shipping executive, 4 people with motives, a missing message, and a ticket under a false name. What interests you most? Wolfe opened his eyes. The ticket was in my pocket. That is where people keep tickets. Not one intended to identify a stranger. Mercer would have kept it with the missing message on his desk. So the killer moved it? Yes. Why? To create a passenger who does not exist. Outside, somewhere beyond the wet roofs of Manhattan, the Hudson Limited was preparing to leave Grand Central. Its private compartment had been reserved for John Carter. But according to Wolfe, John Carter had never intended to travel at all. Chapter 2. A passenger who never boarded. A railway ticket is a promise printed on cardboard. The passenger promises to appear. The railway promises to move him, and both agree that time will settle the matter. John Carter had broken his promise. At 7:30 the next morning, Inspector Kramer telephoned the brownstone to report that the Hudson Limited had reached Albany without him. No passenger using that name had boarded at Grand Central. No one had occupied compartment B in car 9. And no body had been discovered beneath a seat, which Kramer seemed to regard as the only cheerful feature. Wolfe was at breakfast. I was finishing griddle cakes in the kitchen when Fritz handed me the telephone. The compartment was empty all the way, Kramer said. The conductor checked twice. Maybe Carter preferred walking. Get Wolfe. He is eating. So am I. And I'm doing it standing up. That is why he lives longer. Kramer made an observation about Wolfe's waistline that I did not repeat. He said he would arrive at 11:30 with a ticket and the railway reports. At 11, Wolfe came down from the plant rooms wearing a brown suit, a yellow shirt, and the expression of a man who had spent 2 satisfactory hours with orchids and now had to deal with people. I gave him Kramer's message. No passenger boarded, I said. The compartment remained empty. Then the railway fulfilled its part of the agreement, Wolfe replied. What agreement? To provide privacy. For whom? That remains unanswered. He sat behind his desk and rang for beer. Kramer entered at 11:34 with Sergeant Pearlie Stebbins. He put the evidence envelope containing the ticket on Wolfe's desk and remained standing. The train company checked the conductor, porter, gate staff and reservation office, Kramer said. No John Carter. No one entered compartment B. No luggage was found. Was the compartment locked? Wolfe asked. Until departure. The porter unlocked it after the train left the city. Why? Because no passenger appeared. Did anyone request access before departure? No. Did anyone telephone to cancel? No. Wolfe looked at the ticket through the clear envelope. Then whoever arranged this reservation did not expect to travel. Kramer planted his cigar between his teeth. We established that last night. You established that no one traveled. Intention requires thought. Give me some. Wolfe looked at me. Archie, visit the railway company. Speak to the person who accepted the reservation and the clerk who issued the ticket. Examine the original booking record. Kramer objected. My men already did that. Then Mr. Goodwin will enjoy having the path cleared. I took my hat. Grand Central in the morning is a city within a city, except that more people there know where they are going. The main concourse was full of shoes, luggage, echoes, and citizens, trying to save 3 minutes by walking through one another. The railway's passenger office occupied a row of rooms above the concourse. Kramer's name got me past 2 clerks and into the office of Harold Moss, Assistant Superintendent of Passenger Accounts. Moss was a compact man with rimless glasses and a desk arranged in perfect squares. He had the reservation card waiting. Your police have asked every possible question, he said. That is encouraging. I ask impossible ones. He slid the card toward me. The reservation for compartment B, car 9, had been made on Tuesday morning, 2 days before Daniel Mercer's death. The name given was John Carter. Payment had been made in cash through the Midtown Travel Bureau on Madison Avenue. I pointed at the date. The ticket found on Mercer was stamped Thursday afternoon. Moss adjusted his glasses. The reservation was made Tuesday. The physical ticket was collected Thursday. By John Carter? By someone presenting the reservation receipt. So when the police said it was purchased Thursday, they meant issued Thursday, apparently. That reconciled the contradiction, but did not improve it. Someone had planned the journey 2 days before Mercer died, then collected the ticket only hours before poisoning him. Who made the original reservation? The travel bureau telephoned it to us. Did the railway receive a passenger description? No, we do not require one for domestic travel. Any special instructions? Moss turned the card over. On the back in blue pencil were the words, "Hold compartment until 10:45. Passenger may board through lower gate." Lower gate? I asked. A private entrance sometimes used for passengers avoiding the main concourse. Invalids, public figures, people with security concerns, or people who dislike witnesses. Moss did not approve of that description. Who requested the lower gate? The Travel Bureau. I thanked him and went to Madison Avenue. The Midtown Travel Bureau was narrow, polished, and full of posters showing places more attractive than its office. A woman named Clara Webb had handled the reservation. She was in her 50s, with alert eyes and a memory improved by curiosity. "Yes, I remember John Carter," she said. "The name was obviously false." "What made it obvious?" "The man said it too carefully." "What man?" "The person who booked the compartment." I showed her photographs supplied by Kramer. Daniel Mercer, Richard Mercer, Samuel Doran, Philip Grant, Laura Vance, and Margaret Mercer. She examined each. "It may have been this once," she said, touching Philip Grant's photograph. "Or this one." Her finger moved to Samuel Doran. "That is a useful difference. Grant is thin and silver-haired. Doran is broad and dark." The man wore a hat low over his face and kept his coat collar raised. I saw only part of him. Voice, educated. Quiet. Age, over 40. That included half of Manhattan and all the important suspects. She remembered more about the payment. The man had used 5 $20 bills and asked whether the reservation could be collected later by another person. "I told him anyone with the receipt could collect it," she said. "He wrote the name John Carter and left." "Did he write anything else?" She opened a file and produced the Bureau's carbon copy of the request form. The handwriting was printed in block capitals. John Carter, Hudson, Beyond Gate. Below it appeared an address, 17 North River Street, Albany. "Did the police check the address? They telephoned this morning." "It does not exist." I examined the form. The man had pressed hard enough to leave marks on the sheet beneath it. That lower sheet was gone, but the writing board might have retained an impression. "Do you still have the pad he used?" Miss Webb looked surprised. "Possibly." She found it in a drawer. I tilted it beneath a desk lamp and saw faint pressure marks. With a soft pencil rubbed across a separate sheet, the words emerged slowly. Not an address, not a name. "Mercer Terminal file." I showed her. "I never saw that," she said. "The writer used another sheet afterward, or rested a note on the same pad." She nodded uneasily. "Who collected the ticket Thursday?" "A messenger. Describe him. Young. Brown cap. Grey jacket. He gave me the receipt, took the ticket, and left." "Company messenger? No uniform. What time?" 3:15. That matched the stamp on the ticket sleeve. "Did he sign?" "No." "Did he carry anything?" "A cream envelope, the same color as the envelope delivered to Mercer at 7:15. I called Kramer from the travel office and gave him the new fax. He said he would send a man to collect the writing pad and question messenger services. "Do not lose the clerk," he added. "She is attached to the desk." I returned to Grand Central to inspect Car 9, which had been detached after its morning run and placed in the yard. A railway detective escorted me through narrow corridors smelling of upholstery, coal dust, and old journeys. Compartment B contained 2 facing seats, a folding wash basin, a small table, and a door that locked from inside. Nothing had been found by the porter. I checked beneath the seats, behind the curtains, inside the wash basin cabinet, and along the luggage rack. On the underside of the table was a small patch of dried adhesive where something had been taped and removed. The railway detective watched me. "What was there?" he asked. If I knew, I would charge admission. The adhesive held a few fibers from cream-colored paper. Someone had entered the compartment before the train departed, attached an envelope beneath the table, and removed it again. Yet the conductor claimed no passenger had boarded. Who had access before the train was ready? I asked. Cleaning crew, porter, conductor, inspectors, and railway officials, of course. Could someone enter through the lower gate before ordinary boarding? With authorization, Was the gate used Thursday? He checked a logbook. At 10:28, the lower gate had been opened for a private delivery to car 9. The authorization bore the initials PG. Philip Grant had the same initials. The detective said the initials belonged to a railway passenger agent named Paul Givens. Givens, unfortunately, had finished his shift and gone home. Nothing in a murder case is allowed to be convenient for long. I telephoned Saul Panzer and asked him to locate Paul Givens before the police made him nervous. Then I went back to the brownstone. Wolfe was in the office with Kramer and Pearlie. Lunch had ended, and a cup of coffee stood near Wolfe's right hand. I reported everything in order. Tuesday reservation, Thursday collection, false Albany address, lower gate, the pressure marks, reading Mercer terminal files, the messenger with the cream envelope, and the adhesive beneath the compartment table, Kramer said. My men are looking for the messenger. Then tell them he may have delivered the cream envelope to Mercer after collecting the ticket. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. The ticket and the message traveled together, he said. The messenger surrendered the envelope, but Mercer retained the ticket. Or the killer put the ticket in Mercer's pocket later, Kramer said. Yes, we must distinguish those possibilities. I placed the travel bureau's copied form before him. The reservation was planned 2 days earlier. Of course, Wolfe said. Kramer glared. Why of course? A private compartment, a false name, and instructions for an obscure entrance are not arranged impulsively. Mercer's death was preceded by preparation. Preparation for murder, perhaps for an exchange. I told him about the paper fibers beneath the compartment table. Wolfe closed his eyes. Someone intended compartment B to serve as a dead drop, he said. Kramer removed the cigar from his mouth. Explain. An envelope could be taped beneath the table before departure. A second person could board later, retrieve it, and travel on. Neither would need to meet. But nobody boarded. Because Mercer died and the plan was abandoned. I said the words Mercer terminal files were impressed on the travel pad. The exchange concerned company records. Likely the records Philip Grant said were missing, Wolfe replied. Kramer paced once across the office. Mercer had cargo and insurance files stolen. A compartment was reserved under a false name. Somebody planned to exchange those files on the train. Or return them, I said, or sell them. Wolfe opened his eyes. The ticket was proof of identity. The person presenting it, or knowledge of its details, would be recognized as John Carter and admitted to the exchange. But Mercer had the ticket, Kramer said, which suggests he intended to give it to someone, or had received it as confirmation that the exchange was arranged. The telephone rang. It was Saul. I found Paul Givens, he said. He did not authorize any delivery to car 9. He says his initials were copied. Who knew the lower gate procedure? Railway staff, travel agents, and frequent private car customers. Mercer Atlantic Shipping regularly booked compartments for executives. Anything else? Givens remembers Samuel Doran. Doran used the lower gate twice last month. I repeated that to Wolfe and Kramer. Kramer said, Doran opposed the terminal sale and knew the railway system. Wolfe grunted. So did Daniel Mercer. So may his secretary and attorney. Knowledge is not guilt. Kramer left to question Doran and Grant. Pearlie followed with the ticket. After the door closed, I looked at Wolfe. You believe the ticket was planted. I believe its position was unnatural. Mercer could have put it in his pocket after opening the envelope. Yes, then what is unnatural? He telephoned us. Because the ticket frightened him. A frightened man seeking help does not conceal the important object in a coat hanging across the room. He keeps it before him. Unless someone entered and he hid it, then he would have mentioned doing so. I considered the study, Mercer at his desk, the ticket in his evening coat, the message missing, poison on a heart tablet and in his water. So the murderer moved it after Mercer collapsed, possibly, to make us look for John Carter. Yes, but John Carter was not imaginary. Someone made the reservation and arranged the lower gate. A false identity can have a real user. Wolfe reached for his beer. The important question is not why John Carter failed to board. It is why someone wished us to believe he was a passenger. Outside, trains moved beneath Manhattan carrying thousands of people whose names mattered only to themselves and the conductors. John Carter had purchased privacy, reserved a compartment, and arranged a secret entrance. Yet when the Hudson Limited departed, his seat was empty. The passenger had never boarded because his journey had never been the point. Chapter 3. The false identity. A false name is like a borrowed hat. It may conceal the wearer for a while, but it usually reveals something about the head beneath it. By 9 the next morning, Wolfe had spread Daniel Mercer's recent life across the office without leaving his chair. Saul Panzer had supplied bank movements, hotel registrations, business appointments, club visits, private dinners, railway bookings, and enough minor facts to convince me that a wealthy shipping executive spent most of his time proving he was busy. Wolfe sat behind his desk with the reports arranged in piles. He had finished breakfast and spent 2 hours with the orchids. The plant rooms had left him calm. Daniel Mercer's affairs were working to correct that. "There is no John Carter," I said. Wolfe turned a page. "There are undoubtedly thousands. None connected with Mercer. That is different. We had checked company employees, former employees, customers, ship captains, insurance agents, warehouse managers, private creditors, political contributors, and every person listed in Mercer's appointment books for 6 months. No John Carter had appeared. Kramer had searched criminal records and hotel registers. The railway had checked previous reservations. Saul had examined Mercer's private correspondence. Nothing. The name was selected because it is common, I said. Common names attract less attention only when no one examines them. Here it was intended to be examined. That sounds backward. Murder frequently is. Wolfe picked up the railway reservation form. John Carter was written in block capitals. The address was invented. The compartment was reserved through an intermediary. The lower gate was requested under forged initials. These precautions were not intended merely to hide a passenger. They were intended to hide the person arranging the compartment. Yes. What is the difference? A passenger disappears after the journey. An arranger wishes to disappear before it begins. He handed me 3 slips of paper. Interview Miss Vance again, then Harold Dixon and Laura Mercer. I looked at the names. Dixon was not at the house Thursday night. No. That may improve his usefulness. Harold Dixon was the financial partner in Mercer Atlantic Shipping. Samuel Doran directed operations, ships, terminals, and cargo. Dixon handled investors, banking relations, and company acquisitions. Between them, they knew nearly everything Daniel Mercer did, though each claimed the other knew more. Laura Mercer was Daniel's niece. She had not attended the fatal dinner, but she worked for a charitable trust he controlled, and had seen him twice during his final week. "What am I asking?" I said. "Everything concerning Mercer's activities during the 10 days before his death. That may take until Christmas. Then select intelligently. And John Carter? Do not begin with the name. Learn what they fear before offering them a place to hide." I put on my hat. Laura Vance was at Mercer Atlantic's headquarters near Bowling Green. The company occupied 4 floors of a stone building overlooking the harbor. Ships moved beyond the windows with the slow confidence of large objects that knew smaller ones would move first. Miss Vance received me in Mercer's private office. The room had already been searched by the police. Desk drawers stood slightly open. Filing cabinets bore evidence seals. Daniel Mercer's chair remained behind the desk, but no one had sat in it. "You again," she said. "You remember me. You are difficult to forget. I take that as professional praise." She did not smile. She had slept badly, but her dark suit was neat and her voice controlled. I began with Mercer's schedule. During the week before his death, he had met Harold Dixon twice, Samuel Doran 3 times, attorney Philip Grant once, and representatives of the company trying to purchase the North River terminal. He had also cancelled 2 lunches, visited the terminal after midnight, and personally inspected an old records room that had been closed for years. "Why after midnight?" I asked. He said he wanted to see the night security arrangements. "Did that require the president of the company?" "No." "What was in the records room?" "Old cargo manifests, insurance claims, customs documents, and employee files. The missing Mercer terminal files." Her eyes moved toward the sealed cabinet. "I do not know what those words mean. You saw them impressed on the travel office pad. The police told me." "Did Mercer mention stolen files?" He said company records had been copied. When? The Monday before he died. Copied by whom? He did not know. Which records? He would not tell me. That was the first omission from her earlier account. Why did you keep that from Kramer? I did not think it was connected to his death. You thought copied company records, a secret railway compartment, and a poisoned executive were unrelated. Her face tightened. Mr. Mercer often suspected people. Did he suspect you? Yes. That answer came cleanly. Why? I controlled his calendar and correspondence. Anyone copying private records might have used my access. Did you? No. I asked about the cream envelope delivered Thursday evening. She had not seen the messenger clearly. She had seen the envelope before Mercer opened it. It bore no address, only his initials in black ink. After he opened it, he put the contents on his desk and told me to leave. What contents? A railway ticket and a small card. What was written on the card I did not see. You saw enough? No, there was a card. Yes, that mattered. The killer had removed the card, but left the ticket. Did Mercer put the ticket in his coat pocket? I do not know. Where was the coat? On the stand near the study door. Could anyone enter without passing Mercer's desk? Yes. The coat stand was just inside the door. Who entered after the envelope arrived? Mrs. Mercer brought coffee. Richard entered to argue about the company. Mr. Grant returned for his briefcase. Mr. Doran came in once. And you? Twice. Anyone could have put the ticket in the pocket. Yes, or taken the card. She said nothing. I waited long enough to make silence uncomfortable. Who is John Carter? I asked. Her expression did not change, but her right hand tightened against the edge of the desk. I do not know. You have heard the name only since Mercer's death. Then, why did your hand move? She looked down at it and removed it from the desk. You are imaginative. It saves time. She denied everything else. But when I mentioned the false Albany address, she asked whether the railway compartment had been searched for a metal document case. I had not mentioned a case. What metal case? I asked. She stood. Mr. Goodwin, I have work. Your employer is dead. The company remains. So does the question. She walked to the door and opened it. I left because forcing her would have produced less than letting her wonder what she had revealed. Harold Dixon occupied an office 2 floors below. He was 58, heavy through the chest, with white hair cut close and a voice suitable for announcing bank failures. His office contained photographs of ships, framed stock certificates, and no personal objects except a silver model of a freighter. Wolfe has no standing in company affairs, he said. He has a chair. Standing is unnecessary. Dixon did not appreciate that. He admitted meeting Mercer twice during the final week. The first discussion concerned the sale of the North River Terminal. The second concerned irregular payments discovered in a reserve account. What irregular payments? I asked. Consulting fees. To whom? A company called Atlantic Survey and Review. Does it exist? On paper. How much? Nearly $600,000 over 18 months. Who authorized them? The forms carried Daniel's initials. Were they genuine? Dixon looked toward the harbor. He denied signing them. Who had authority to imitate or reproduce his approval? His secretary could prepare forms. Philip Grant could approve legal charges. Samuel Doran controlled operational expenses. Richard Mercer had limited signing power. And you? I supervised the accounts. That puts you in a comfortable position for discovering theft or arranging it. His face hardened. Be careful. I am careful enough to ask before accusing. He told me Mercer had begun a private audit without informing the board. 3 days before his death, Mercer removed a group of terminal records from company storage. Did you know where he took them? No. Railway compartment, perhaps? Dixon stared at me. What railway compartment? Reserved for John Carter. The name produced no visible surprise. That interested me more than surprise would have. You know it, I said. No. You did not ask who Carter was. The newspapers have printed the name. They have not printed the compartment. He leaned back. Then why are you telling me? To see whether you looked toward the door. He did not. I asked about the old records room Mercer had inspected after midnight. Dixon said it contained files from the company's early years, including private agreements with dock operators, customs brokers, and labor contractors. Some records could damage reputations if misunderstood. Whose reputation? The company's. John Carter's. His eyes narrowed. I have never known anyone by that name. Was it an alias used by Mercer Atlantic? No. A code name? No. A name on false shipping documents? No. The three answers came too evenly. You practiced that sequence, I said. He rose. This interview is over. Before leaving, I pointed to the silver freighter on his desk. Its name was engraved on the base. Carter Bell. Interesting ship. It belonged to my father. Did Daniel Mercer? Of course. What was it named? Carter, my mother's family name. There it was. Dixon realized it too. Your mother was a Carter? Yes. Then John Carter was not selected at random. It is a common name to your family. Dixon came around the desk. My mother died 30 years ago. Daniel would not use her name for any secret purpose. Unless the secret concerned you. He stopped. I left before he decided whether throwing me into the harbor would improve company morale. Laura Mercer lived in a small apartment near Washington Square. She was 29, with brown hair, intelligent gray eyes, and enough resemblance to Daniel Mercer around the mouth to make the relationship obvious. She worked for the Mercer Foundation, which supported hospitals, schools, and public art. Daniel had been chairman and principal donor. She invited me into a sitting room containing books, plants, and none of the defensive luxury found in the Mercer house. My uncle, said Mr. Wolfe, was the only detective he respected, she said. He may have been trying to reduce the fee. He respected very few people. Did he trust you? Sometimes. She had seen Mercer on Monday afternoon and Wednesday evening. On Monday, he asked her to search Foundation archives for payments to a man named Jonathan Carlyle. Not John Carter, no. What did Carlyle do? I could not find him. There were 3 payments, each listed as historical research. How much? $5,000 each. Who authorized them? My uncle. Did he explain? He said Carlyle had information about the company's founding. Did Harold Dixon's family help found Mercer Atlantic? Yes. His father, Robert Dixon, was Daniel's first partner. Was Dixon's mother a Carter? Laura looked surprised. Evelyn Carter. She inherited money from a shipping family. That gave the false name roots. On Wednesday, Mercer asked Laura about an old company photograph kept by the foundation. It showed Daniel Mercer, Robert Dixon, and several dock officials at the opening of the North River terminal. Why did he want it? He asked whether a man had been removed from the original image. Was one? The photograph had been grouped on the right side. Who was there originally? I do not know. Did your uncle mention John Carter? No. I watched her face and believed her, which can be dangerous but is occasionally useful. Did he mention a train ticket? He asked whether Foundation couriers could place a package aboard a train without a passenger. When? Wednesday. What did you say? That it would be possible, with railway permission. What package? He would not tell me. A metal document case. Her eyes widened. Yes. Laura explained that Mercer kept a flat steel case in the Foundation archive. It held original papers connected with the company's founding and ownership of the terminal. On Wednesday evening, the case was gone. Who had access? My uncle, me, and the archive supervisor. Did you remove it? No. Was the case large enough to fit under a railway compartment table? Yes, that, explained Miss Vance's question. Who else knew about it? Harold Dixon. He once asked to see the founding papers, but my uncle refused. Why? They argued over whether the terminal had been purchased legally. I asked Laura about John Carter one final time. She shook her head. The name means nothing to me. Your uncle may have constructed it from Jonathan Carlyle and Evelyn Carter. Why? To identify someone without naming him. She thought about it. Harold Dixon? Possibly. She stood and went to a desk. From a drawer she took an old photograph and handed it to me. It showed Daniel Mercer as a young man beside Robert Dixon at the North River terminal. The right edge had been cut away. On the back, in faded ink, someone had written, Opening Day, Mercer, Dixon, Carter, and Hale. Who was Carter? I asked. I do not know. Who was Hale? No idea. The photograph gave us a third Carter and a second invisible man. I telephoned Wolfe from Laura's apartment. He listened, without interrupting, while I reported Miss Vance's metal case, Dixon's Carter family connection, Jonathan Carlyle, the missing founding papers, and the trimmed photograph. "Bring the photograph," he said. "Miss Mercer owns it. She will lend it," Laura agreed. I reached the brownstone at 5:15. Wolfe was in the office drinking beer. Saul Panzer had returned with a report on Atlantic's survey and review. The company receiving the false consulting fees had been created by a lawyer employed by Harold Dixon. Its bank account had been closed the morning after Mercer's death. "Dixon?" I asked. "Too visible," Saul said. "But he knew it existed." I gave Wolfe the photograph. He examined the trimmed edge and turned it over. "Mercer, Dixon, Carter, and Hale," he read. "The last two have been removed from the image. Maybe John Carter was a real man after all." "No, you sound certain." "I am certain the name on the ticket was not intended as the name of the original Carter." He placed the photograph beside the railway form. "John is a universal first name. Carter is tied to Dixon's family and the company's past. The combination was created as a private signal. Mercer selected a name that would be meaningless to strangers, but alarming to the person who understood the history. Dixon, likely. Then Dixon was supposed to board the train. Again you insist upon a passenger. The ticket had his family name. The ticket identified the subject of the exchange, not necessarily its participant." I sat at my desk. "Explain." "The missing metal case contained founding papers. The photograph suggests that one or more men were erased from Mercer Atlantic's official history. The false payments to Jonathan Carlyle were for historical research. Mercer learned something about the company's origin and arranged to place the evidence in a private railway compartment. Why use John Carter? To tell the recipient which secret the case contained. So the name was a label, a warning, Saul said, or a threat. Wolfe nodded. The invented passenger served three purposes. He reserved the compartment, authenticated the exchange, and pointed toward an old identity without naming a living person. I looked at the ticket. Then whoever planted it in Mercer's pocket wanted us to follow the old scandal. Yes. Why would the murderer direct us toward Dixon? To make Mr. Dixon appear to be John Carter. Is he? No. But he knows who was. That was where Wolfe stopped. He instructed Saul to identify every person in the untrimmed terminal photograph, including Carter and Hale. I was to obtain the Foundation's payment records for Jonathan Carlyle and trace the missing metal case. What about Dixon? Leave him uncertain. That is often more work than frightening him. Uncertainty is fear with discipline. Outside, evening pressed against the brownstone windows. Somewhere in New York, a steel case containing Mercer Atlantic's buried history had disappeared. A private compartment had been prepared to receive it. A false passenger had been created to explain it. John Carter had no address, no face, and no past of his own. But the name had been chosen with care. It belonged not to a man, but to a secret. Chapter 4. The missing meeting. Saul Panzer found Daniel Mercer's missing Wednesday evening in the pocket of a taxi driver who had not known he possessed it. The driver's name was Walter Briggs. He kept written records because his memory was poor and his trust in passengers was worse. On Wednesday night, one day before Mercer's death, he had collected a grey-haired man outside the Mercer Foundation office and driven him to Grand Central. The man paid in cash, refused a receipt, and left a folded business card on the rear seat. The card belonged to Daniel Mercer. At 8:15 Friday morning, Saul telephoned the brownstone. "I found the driver," he said. "Mercer reached Grand Central at 8:52 Wednesday night. He told Briggs to use the side entrance on Vanderbilt Avenue." "What did he carry?" I asked. "A flat steel document case. That woke me more efficiently than coffee." "Did Briggs see him return?" "No, but another driver picked Mercer up outside the station shortly after 10. He still had the case." "Where did he go?" "Home." I glanced toward the kitchen. Wolfe was finishing breakfast and would be upstairs with the orchids in 20 minutes. What was Mercer doing at the station? That is the part I have not found. "You have until 11:30. Saul hung up without objecting. That was one of the reasons Wolfe paid him more than most men earned for being agreeable. When Wolfe entered the office after his morning session in the plant rooms, I gave him the report. He lowered himself into his chair and reached for the bell to summon beer. "Mercer took the missing steel case to Grand Central," I said. "He stayed a little more than an hour and returned home with it. Therefore, the intended transfer failed. You assume he went there to transfer it. He carried company documents to a railway station after asking his niece whether a package could be placed aboard a train. What alternative do you offer? He may have liked the architecture. Wolfe pressed the bell. At what time did he arrive? 8:02, shortly after 10. Which trains arrived during that period? I have not checked. Do so. Fritz entered with beer. Wolfe poured, waited for the foam to settle, and drank. Also determine whether Mercer had arranged to meet someone on a platform rather than in the concourse. What makes you think it was a platform? A man conducting ordinary business meets in a restaurant or waiting room. A man exchanging dangerous information selects a place where arrival and departure are controlled by a timetable. I put on my hat. Saul met me beneath the great clock at Grand Central. The concourse was full of travelers moving with the conviction that everyone else had chosen the wrong direction. Saul handed me a typed list. 4 trains arrived between 9 and 10 Wednesday evening, he said. 2 from Albany, 1 from Poughkeepsie, and 1 local. Mercer asked about the 9:23 from Albany. How do you know? A clerk at the information booth remembers him. The clerk was named Edward Hall and had recognized Mercer's photograph in the newspaper. He remembered because Mercer asked the same question 3 times. Was the Albany train on time? I asked. 7 minutes late. Did Mercer meet anyone from it? Not that I saw. Where did he wait? Near the entrance to platform 16. He did not stand with the ordinary passengers. He stayed beside the pillar across from the gate. Was he carrying anything? A grey metal case. Did he give a name? He asked whether anyone had left a message for D. Mercer. Had anyone? No. Did he ask about John Carter? Hall shook his head. Saul and I went down to platform 16. The platform was empty except for 2 railway workers and a redcap moving a luggage cart. Trains made every station look temporary, but the concrete pillars and overhead lamps at Grand Central had enough age to suggest they had seen more secrets than the police. The redcap was named Liane Bates. He remembered Mercer immediately. He stood over there, Bates said, pointing to a pillar near the middle of the platform. Kept looking at his watch. How often? Every minute or 2. I asked whether he needed help with the case. He said no. Did he speak to anyone? Not on the platform. Did anyone appear to be watching him? Bates considered it. There was a man near the stairs for a while. Description? Dark coat, hat. Couldn't see the face. Did Mercer notice him? I don't know. The man left before the Albany train arrived. Could the man have been Harold Dixon? I showed him Dixon's photograph. Bates frowned. Maybe. The build is close. Samuel Doran. Too broad. Philip Grant. Could be. That left us with 2 Mabes, which is what witnesses supply when they wish to be useful without taking responsibility. The Albany train arrived at 9:30. Passengers left the cars and passed Mercer. He watched each face. No one approached him. According to Bates, Mercer waited another 15 minutes after the platform cleared. Then he asked whether a passenger could remain aboard after arrival, without passing through the gate. What did you tell him? I asked. That everyone had to leave unless they were railway staff. How did he react? He looked angry, not at me, at whoever had failed to come. Did he leave immediately? No. He went upstairs to the telephone booths. The station telephone records were not intended for detectives who lacked warrants, but Kramer supplied authority after complaining that Wolfe had turned the police department into a messenger service. The record showed that Mercer had placed a call at 9:51. The number belonged to a public telephone outside a closed warehouse near the North River terminal. No one could identify who answered. The call lasted 43 seconds. A second call, made at 9:55, went to the Mercer Atlantic offices. The night switchboard operator had connected Mercer with an internal extension registered to the financial department, Harold Dixon's department. The operator did not know who answered. After business hours, calls could be transferred to several private offices. I telephoned Wolfe from the station. Mercer waited on platform 16 for the 9:23 from Albany, I said. The train was 7 minutes late. He carried the steel case, checked his watch repeatedly, and met no one. A man in a dark coat may have watched him. Afterward, Mercer called a public telephone near the North River terminal and then the financial department at Mercer Atlantic. What did he do with the case? Kept it. Then the person he expected was to authenticate himself before receiving it. Possibly John Carter? No, John Carter had not yet been created. I paused. The reservation was made Tuesday morning. The railway reservation was made Tuesday. We do not know when Mercer learned the name. You think Wednesday's meeting used a different signal? Yes. The failure of that meeting forced a new arrangement. The private train compartment on Thursday. Likely. Wolfe instructed me to identify the warehouse telephone and discover who had access to Dixon's office after hours. The warehouse belonged to Mercer Atlantic and had been officially unused for 6 months. Samuel Doran controlled the terminal operations, but Harold Dixon's financial department paid the telephone bill. At company headquarters, Laura Vance received Saul and me without pleasure. Mr. Mercer called the financial floor Wednesday night, she asked. At 9:55. I was not here. Who was? Mr. Dixon sometimes worked late. His assistant, Paul Kent, may also have been present. Did Mercer tell you about the station meeting? No. Did he tell you he still possessed the steel case when he returned home? I did not see him after 7 that evening. What was in the case? She hesitated. Founding agreements, terminal deeds, and early partnership records. Anything concerning Harold Dixon's family? Possibly. Anything concerning John Carter? I do not know. She knew more than she offered. But Wolfe had instructed me not to press her until the facts had grown teeth. Harold Dixon's office was empty. His assistant said Dixon had gone to a bank meeting. I did not believe him, mostly because the assistant did not. I used Kramer's authority to inspect the financial floor telephone logs. The internal extension Mercer called at 9:55 had been answered in Dixon's private office. The building's night register showed Dixon entered at 7:40 and left at 10:20. That gave him time to watch Mercer at Grand Central, return by taxi, and answer the call. It did not prove he had done so. When we found Dixon at his club shortly before noon, he denied everything. I was working in my office, he said. Alone? Yes. Daniel Mercer telephoned you at 9:55. He may have, you answered. I answer many calls. What did he say? I do not remember. I showed him the station photograph, taken from a railway security camera. Mercer stood beside the pillar with the steel case in one hand. Near the stairs was the blurred shape of a man in a dark coat. Is that you? No. The build is close. So are 1,000 others. Mercer was expecting someone from Albany. I knew nothing of it. He called you after the person failed to arrive. Dixon's jaw tightened. Then perhaps he wanted to complain. About what? Daniel complained about everything. Did he mention John Carter? No. Did he mention your mother's family? Dixon put down his glass. My mother has been dead for 30 years. Her name remains useful, not to me. You recognized it when I mentioned the ticket. It is my family name. Recognition is not guilt. Nor is forgetting a telephone call, but both deserve attention. Dixon rose and left the room without dismissing us. It was not polite, but it was informative. Laura Mercer supplied the next piece. She remembered her uncle telephoning her at 10:20 Wednesday night, shortly after leaving the station. He was furious, she said. What did he say? He asked whether the Foundation archive supervisor had told anyone about the steel case. Had she? No. Did he explain why the meeting failed? He said, the wrong man knew where I would be. I wrote it down exactly. Anything else? He said he would arrange the transfer differently. He said the receiver would not need to meet him. The private railway compartment. That must have been what he meant. Did he mention a name? Laura thought. He said, Carter will make him understand. That was the first evidence that Mercer himself had selected the false name. I returned to the brownstone at 2:30. Wolfe had finished lunch and was drinking coffee in the office. Saul joined us. 5 minutes later, I gave Wolfe the full report. Mercer had carried the steel case to platform 16 and waited for the Albany train. A man in a dark coat had watched from the stairs. No one approached. Mercer telephoned the terminal warehouse and Harold Dixon's office. He later told Laura that the wrong man had known where he would be, and that the next transfer would require no meeting. Wolfe sat with his eyes closed. The station meeting was compromised, I said. Mercer knew someone had discovered it. Yes, Dixon. Then, why call him to test him, accuse him, or mislead him? Saul said. The public telephone near the warehouse received another call at 8:30 Wednesday evening. It came from Mercer's house. Mercer called before leaving, I asked. Probably. The house operator connected it from the study. Wolfe opened his eyes. Then the warehouse telephone was the agreed contact point. Mercer called at 8:30 to confirm the station meeting. He called again at 9:51 after the meeting failed. Who answered? We do not know. Find out who knew the warehouse number. Saul nodded. I sat at my desk. Mercer expected someone to arrive from Albany with proof, take the steel case, or exchange documents. Not necessarily arrive from Albany, Wolfe said. He selected the platform because the arriving passengers provided concealment. The person could have entered from the concourse. But no one came. Someone came. The observer near the stairs. The wrong man. Yes. Mercer recognized that the meeting was watched. He refused to surrender the case. Then he created John Carter and the private compartment for the second attempt. He created a transfer without personal contact. The metal case would be placed aboard the train. The recipient would retrieve it using the false identity. Why did Mercer say John Carter must not board? Wolfe's lips tightened. Because by Thursday evening he had learned that someone other than the intended recipient possessed the ticket. That would mean the ticket itself had been intercepted or copied. The cream envelope delivered to Mercer contained it. Yes, its arrival warned him that his second arrangement had also been penetrated. I looked at the railway ticket in my mind, sealed in its pale sleeve and later found in Mercer's coat pocket. The killer sent it back to him. Likely. To say the exchange had failed, to say more. The ticket told Mercer that the person he feared controlled the false identity. Harold Dixon? Wolfe closed his eyes again. Mr. Dixon is connected to Carter, the financial office, the warehouse telephone, and the company's early records. That is abundance, not proof. What do we need? The identity of the person Mercer expected at the station, Saul asked. And if that person is dead, then the dead must be questioned through records. Outside the office windows, the afternoon light had turned the wet street silver. On Wednesday night, Daniel Mercer had stood on a railway platform with a steel case in his hand and fear at his shoulder. He had watched an arriving train empty itself one passenger at a time. The person he trusted never appeared. The person he feared may have been there all along. Chapter 5. The Ticket's Real Purpose. By Saturday morning, John Carter had acquired a reservation, a private compartment, a false address, and several people who denied knowing him. That placed him ahead of many actual New Yorkers. He still lacked a fess. At 9:15, Inspector Kramer sent over copies of every receipt connected with the ticket. I spread them across my desk while Wolfe was upstairs with the orchids. Railway accounts are designed to move money without allowing anyone to understand how. But persistence and a magnifying glass can make accountants regret using numbers. The reservation had been entered through the Midtown Travel Bureau on Tuesday. The physical ticket had been collected there Thursday afternoon by a messenger. That much we knew. The payment record told a different story. The serial number on the cash receipt belonged not to the Midtown office, but to a downtown railway counter maintained inside the Broad Street Station concourse, 3 blocks from Mercer Atlantic Shipping. More interestingly, the counter stood across the street from the building, where Harold Dixon kept a private financial office separate from company headquarters. I checked the figures twice. Someone had paid cash at Broad Street Station on Tuesday morning. The clerk there had telephoned the reservation to the Midtown Bureau, apparently because only the Midtown office handled private compartments on the Hudson Limited. The ticket itself remained until Thursday, when the messenger collected it. It was an unnecessarily complicated way to buy transportation. That made it promising. When Wolfe entered at 11:30, I placed the receipt before him. The ticket was paid for downtown, I said. Broad Street Station, near Dixon's private office. Wolfe sat and glanced at the receipt. How near? Close enough for him to buy it between complaints from investors. Did he? I am going to ask. No. I stared at him. You prefer not knowing? I prefer that you question the clerk before warning Mr. Dixon. Fritz entered with beer. Wolfe poured carefully, watched the foam settle and drank. The route of purchase matters, he said. The buyer chose cash and separated payment from collection. He wished to prevent the clerk who saw his face from seeing the person who received the ticket. The messenger, or the person behind the messenger. I took the receipt and my hat. Broad Street Station was crowded with office workers, messengers, and men who carried briefcases, as if the city would collapse if they loosened their grip. The railway ticket counter stood beneath a brass clock between a newsstand and a row of telephone booths. The clerk who had worked Tuesday morning was named Albert Nolan. He was thin, bald, and suspicious of detectives, which suggested intelligence. I showed him Kramer's authorization and the receipt. Yes, he said. I remember the transaction. John Carter? I remember the money. Why? 5 new $20 notes. Sequential numbers. Did you record them? No. But new money sticks together. I counted twice. Who paid? A man. That narrows it to half the city. Middle-aged, dark coat, grey hat. Harold Dixon? I showed him a photograph. Nolan looked at it for a long time. Similar build, but I cannot say. Philip Grant? Possibly. Samuel Doran? Too broad. Nolan shook his head. No, I know Mr. Mercer by sight. That eliminated the victim, which was considerate. What exactly did the buyer request? A private compartment on the Thursday Hudson Limited. He already knew the departure time and car arrangement. Did he use the name John Carter? He handed me a card with the name printed on it. What happened to the card? I returned it. Anything written besides the name. 2 numbers, 9 and 17. Car 9 and the false address at 17 North River Street, perhaps. Did he ask for the lower gate? Yes. He said the passenger required discretion. What kind? He did not explain. Did he say the passenger would actually travel? Nolan frowned. No. That was worth repeating. He bought a train ticket without saying anyone would travel. People do not usually explain their plans. Did he ask any unusual questions? 1. He asked whether a ticket could be used to identify the person who purchased it. What did you say? I said the ticket carried no physical description. What did he say? Nolan's eyes narrowed as he searched his memory. He said, that is not the kind of identity I mean. I wrote it down. Anything else? He asked whether the compartment number would appear on both the reservation record and ticket sleeve. I said yes. The buyer had cared about matching information, not transportation. I inspected the station telephone log. 5 minutes after the cash payment, a call had been placed from a booth beside the ticket counter to Daniel Mercer's private office. Laura Vance had answered it. I telephoned her from the station. Do you remember a call Tuesday morning concerning a railway reservation? I asked. There was a pause. I received many calls. This one came from Broad Street Station at 9:42. Another pause. Yes. Who called? He did not give a name. What did he say? He asked me to tell Mr. Mercer that Carter had been confirmed. There it was. What did Mercer do? He took the call in his office after I transferred it. How long? Less than a minute. What did he say afterward? He asked me to remove the call from the daily message sheet. Did you? Yes. You omitted this when we questioned you. It seemed private. Poisoning usually makes privacy temporary. She said nothing. Did the caller mention a train? No. A compartment? Yes. I hung up and telephoned Wolfe. The buyer asked whether the ticket could identify its purchaser, but said he did not mean physical identification. 5 minutes later, someone called Mercer and said, Carter has been confirmed. No train was mentioned. Exlixon, you sound cheerful. I am not. Return. Dixon's office is across the street. Do not visit it. That makes it more attractive, Archie. I returned. Wolfe was reading the copied railway records when I entered. Saul sat in the yellow chair with a folder on his knee. Saul had found the source of the 5 new $20 notes. They had been withdrawn Monday afternoon from an account belonging to Atlantic Survey and Review, the shell company connected to the false consulting payments. Harold Dixon's lawyer had created the company. Dixon bought the ticket, I said. Someone using money connected to Dixon bought it, Wolfe corrected. That distinction may comfort him. It should not, Saul added another fact. The messenger who collected the physical ticket Thursday had been hired by telephone. The fee was paid with a $5 note drawn from the same sequential series. So the buyer paid for the reservation and messenger from one packet of cash, I said. Yes, Saul replied. Wolfe looked at the ticket photograph. Yet the messenger delivered the ticket to Mercer in a cream envelope. He collected it at 3:15, I said. The envelope arrived at Mercer's house at 7:15. 4 hours, enough time to show it to someone, or copy it. Wolfe closed his eyes. I waited. He opened them. The ticket was never intended to transport John Carter. We knew no one boarded. That is not the same conclusion. It was never intended to be used at the gate. I sat at my desk. Then why reserve a compartment? To create information known only to the parties involved. Car 9, compartment B, departure 11:40. Yes. A set of facts difficult to guess and easy to verify. The ticket was a password. More than a password, it was a credential. Saul said one party arranged the reservation, the other received the physical ticket. Wolfe nodded. At their confidential meeting, the bearer could produce the ticket, state the false name, or identify the compartment. That would prove he came from the person who arranged it. I looked again at the name. John Carter was the signal. Yes, known to Mercer and whoever created it. Correct. Then Mercer's telephone warning makes sense. John Carter must not board that train did not mean stop a passenger. It meant prevent the person using the identity from completing the exchange. Wolfe's lips pushed forward. Possibly. But I believe Mercer spoke figuratively. By Thursday evening, he had learned that the credential had reached the wrong hands. If the false identity was accepted, the impostor would receive whatever Mercer intended to protect. The steel case. Likely, Saul asked. Who was supposed to authenticate whom? That was the right question. Wolfe picked up the old terminal photograph showing Mercer, Robert Dixon, Carter, and Hale, with the final 2 men cut away. Mercer had discovered something about the company's founding. He arranged a secret station meeting Wednesday. It failed because the wrong man knew the location. He then arranged a second exchange requiring no direct introduction. I said, the private compartment was the dead drop. Yes. The steel case would be placed inside before departure. The authorized person would identify himself through the Carter signal and retrieve it. But the ticket stayed with Mercer, only after it was unexpectedly returned to him Thursday evening. By the messenger. Precisely, Saul leaned forward. The intended recipient should have received the ticket, not Mercer. Wolfe nodded. The reservation was created Tuesday. The buyer arranged for the physical ticket to be collected Thursday. The messenger was then redirected to Mercer's house. Someone intercepted the plan and sent the credential back as a warning. I considered the cream envelope and Mercer's fear. Whoever sent it was saying, I know the name, the train, and the compartment, and therefore knew the secret exchange. Mercer telephoned us because the arrangement had been compromised. Yes, I said. Then why put the ticket in his coat after killing him? To suggest that Mercer himself was traveling under the false name, or that the unknown John Carter had met him privately. Either interpretation directs attention away from the credential's actual function. The doorbell rang. It was Inspector Kramer with Harold Dixon. Dixon entered first, looking furious. Kramer followed with Pearlie. Apparently, Kramer had reached the same stage of the investigation by a louder route. Dixon refused the red leather chair. I have been questioned at my office, my club, and my home, he said. Now I am brought here because someone purchased a railway ticket near a building I own. Wolfe regarded him. Sit, I prefer to stand. So do horses. It has no bearing on intelligence, Dixon sat. Wolfe placed the receipt on the desk. Cash connected to Atlantic Survey and Review, purchased the John Carter reservation. Dixon looked at it. I have no control over that company. Your lawyer created it for a client. Name the client. I cannot. Then I shall assume it was you. You may assume anything. The messenger collecting. The ticket was paid from the same packet of currency. Dixon's eyes shifted toward Kramer. That proves someone wished to implicate me. Wolfe said. Who was John Carter? I do not know. Your mother's family name was Carter. The old terminal photograph includes a Carter. Mercer selected the name as a private signal. You understood it? No. You recognized it when Mr. Goodwin first mentioned the ticket. It was familiar, nothing more. Wolfe leaned back. On Tuesday morning, after the ticket was reserved, someone telephoned Mercer and said, "Carter has been confirmed." What did that mean? Dixon's face became rigid. "I cannot tell you. Cannot or will not. Both." Kramer said, "That answer can be improved downtown." Dixon turned to him. "I have committed no crime." Wolfe spoke before Kramer could. "Mr. Dixon, Daniel Mercer intended to transfer a steel case containing company records. The false name authenticated the recipient. The ticket was proof that the bearer represented the person with whom Mercer had made the arrangement." Dixon said nothing. "The Wednesday station meeting failed," Wolfe continued. "On Thursday, the ticket itself was sent back to Mercer. He understood that the secret had been penetrated. He telephoned me. Within minutes, he was poisoned. You are accusing me. No. I am inviting you to explain why money linked to your company purchased the credential. I have no explanation. Then supply the identity of the person for whom Atlantic Survey and Review was created." Dixon's hands tightened on his knees. "I cannot." "Because that person is John Carter?" "No." The denial came too quickly. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Then John Carter identifies not you, but someone whose existence threatens you." Dixon rose. "I will answer no more questions without Philip Grant." That was interesting, because Grant was Mercer's attorney, not Dixon's. Kramer allowed him to leave, only after ordering him to remain available. Purley followed Dixon into the hall. When they were gone, Kramer looked at Wolfe. "You had him sweating, has sweat glands. You think he bought the ticket?" "No." Kramer scowled. "The money came from his shell company." "Exactly. An intelligent man committing murder does not use funds that point directly to himself unless he believes the transaction will never be examined, or unless someone else used them." "Yes," I said. "Dixon knows who John Carter represents. He knows what the signal means," Wolfe replied. "That may be more important." Kramer left with the receipts and a fresh dislike of everyone involved. Saul went to trace Philip Grant's connection with Atlantic Survey and Review. I remained at my desk, looking at the copied ticket. A passenger ticket usually answers 3 questions: who, where, and when. This one answered none of them honestly. John Carter was not the passenger. Albany was not the purpose. 11:40 was not important because of the train's departure. The ticket existed so that 2 people who dared not trust names could recognize each other. Daniel Mercer had received the credential from the wrong person. Before he could discover who had betrayed the arrangement, someone had made certain he would never attend another meeting. Chapter 6. The hidden transaction money leaves footprints, but only when someone knows which floor to examine. On Monday morning, Saul Panzer brought us a trail extending across 6 years, 4 corporations, 3 banks, and enough false accounting to make honesty look like an administrative error. He arrived at the brownstone at 10:40 with a leather folder under one arm. Wolfe was still upstairs with the orchids, so Saul sat in the yellow chair while I studied the first page. The total missing from Mercer Atlantic Shipping was $1,860,000. "That is not an irregularity," I said. "That is a migration. The figure may increase," Saul replied. "Some older accounts are incomplete." The money had moved through Atlantic Survey and Review, the company connected with the railway ticket purchase. From there, portions passed through consulting firms, shipping insurers, and warehouse maintenance companies that performed no visible work. Every transaction had been approved through Mercer Atlantic's financial division. Harold Dixon supervised that division. At 11:30, Wolfe entered, settled behind his desk, and accepted the folder. He read the summary while Fritz brought beer. "Who signed the authorizations?" Wolfe asked. "Some carry Daniel Mercer's initials," Saul said. "Others were approved by Dixon. 3 use Laura Vance's typed authorization code, but she says she never entered them." "Fora?" "Possibly. The codes were valid. Who could obtain them?" "Dixon, his assistant Paul Kent, Mercer, Laura Vance, and Philip Grant when reviewing contracts." Wolfe turned a page. "Atlantic Survey and Review received the largest sums." "Yes, it had no employees, office, equipment, or legitimate clients. Beneficial owner, still hidden. The company was created by a legal clerk working under Philip Grant, but the instructions came through Dixon's private office." I sat at my desk. That sounds close enough to Harold Dixon to borrow money. Wolfe ignored me. Where did the funds go after leaving the shell companies? Some returned as false investment income. About $900,000 went to accounts in other names. One account paid expenses for Dixon's country property. Another covered private debts owed by his son. That establishes benefit, Wolfe said. Not complete control, Saul replied. Wolfe grunted approvingly. Saul never polished evidence past its actual shine. I looked at the report. Mercer discovered this before he died, 3 weeks before, Saul said. He hired an outside accountant named Stephen Ames without telling Dixon or the board. What happened to Ames? He left New York the morning after Mercer died. Convenient. He was frightened. I spoke with him by telephone in Boston. He says Mercer instructed him to compare terminal expenses with banking transfers. Ames found duplicate invoices and false consulting payments. Did he identify Dixon? He told Mercer the fraud required someone with Dixon's authority. Wolfe drank beer. Not Dixon himself? No. Ames warned that authority could have been copied or abused by someone with access. Wolfe put down the glass. Archie, bring Mr. Ames to New York. He is in Boston. Trains move in both directions. I telephoned Ames. He objected. Until I mentioned Inspector Kramer, grand jury subpoenas, and the possibility that running from a murder investigation could injure his professional dignity. He agreed to take the afternoon train. While waiting, I visited Mercer Atlantic Shipping. Laura Vance received me in Daniel Mercer's old office. The chair behind the desk was still vacant. Harold Dixon had apparently decided that occupying it before the funeral would look eager. I placed copies of 6 authorizations before her. Your code appears on these. She examined them. I did not prepare them. Someone used it. Who knew it? Mr. Mercer, Mr. Dixon, and I did. Mr. Grant's office occasionally received temporary access for legal filings. Paul Kent? Her eyes moved toward the glass partition overlooking the financial department. He could have seen it. Could Harold Dixon? Of course. Did Mercer accuse him? She hesitated. When? Before he died. Laura Vance closed the folder, Mr. Mercer asked me to arrange a private meeting with Mr. Dixon on Wednesday evening. At Grand Central? Yes, that was new. You knew about the station meeting. I knew where Mr. Mercer was going. I did not know the purpose. Who selected the location? Mr. Mercer. Who selected the name John Carter? Her silence answered before she did. Mr. Mercer did. Why? He did not want the meeting written into his calendar under Mr. Dixon's name. He told me to enter only the initials JC, if a reminder became necessary. Why John Carter? I asked. He said Mr. Dixon would understand. Did you contact Dixon? No, Mr. Mercer said another person would deliver the confirmation. What person? I do not know. Did you arrange the train ticket? No. Did Mercer? He told me the ticket would confirm that the meeting had not been changed. That clarified the arrangement and complicated it at the same time. The ticket was proof of identity, I said. Yes. Whoever knew the name, compartment, and departure time would be accepted as acting with Mr. Mercer's authority. Why use a railway ticket instead of a telephone call? Mr. Mercer believed his office calls were being monitored. By Dixon? He suspected Mr. Dixon. Then why did money from Dixon's shell company purchase the ticket? Laura stared at me. I did not know that. Who did Mercer trust to arrange it? He would not tell me. Did he take the steel case to the station to confront Dixon? Yes. What was in it? Copies of the questionable transfers, old terminal ownership papers, and a written demand that the missing money be restored. Why old terminal papers, Mr. Mercer believed the fraud began with land transactions connected to the terminal. Did Dixon arrive? No. How do you know? Mr. Mercer telephoned me afterward, he said. The man had failed to appear. You told us you did not speak with Mercer after 7 Wednesday. Her face tightened. I was protecting the company. You were protecting someone. I was protecting confidential records. What did Mercer say exactly? She looked toward the empty chair. He said, Harold knows I found the account. Either he has lost his nerve or someone warned him. Anything else? He said he would make one final attempt on Thursday. The ticket arrangement? Yes. Who was supposed to receive the ticket? Mr. Dixon. That overturned part of our earlier structure. The ticket had not been intended for an unknown third party. It was the private credential between Mercer and Dixon. The false name confirmed that any message or messenger using it came from Mercer. Then why was the ticket collected by a messenger and delivered back to Mercer? I do not know, neither did I, and that was beginning to irritate me. Harold Dixon was not in his office. Paul Kent, his assistant, was 35, fair-haired, and carried himself with the nervous neatness of a man who checked his figures before speaking. His desk held 3 sharpened pencils, placed parallel to one another. "Mr. Dixon is at the bank," he said. "He spends a great deal of time there for a man whose company is missing money." Kent's face changed slightly. "Have the police questioned you?" "Yes." "Did you tell them Mercer planned to meet Dixon at Grand Central?" "I knew nothing about that." "Did you know the phrase John Carter?" "No." "Did you prepare payments to Atlantic Survey and Review?" "I processed invoices approved by Mr. Dixon." "How many?" "I do not remember. More than 50. His fingers moved toward the pencils, then stopped. "If the approvals were valid, I had no reason to question them." "Were they valid?" "They carried the correct authorization." "Did you ever see Dixon place Daniel Mercer's initials on a document?" "No." "Did you have access to Laura Vance's authorization code?" "No." That was too quick. I leaned across the desk. "Mr. Kent, a code is not a diamond. You did not have to possess it, you only had to see it." He looked toward Dixon's private office. "Once," he said, "Mr. Dixon asked me to retrieve a contract from Mr. Mercer's secretary. Her code was written on a routing sheet. Did you copy it?" "No." "Did Dixon?" "I do not know." "Did he instruct you to purchase a train ticket?" Kent went completely still. There are silences that mean no, silences that mean perhaps, and silences that are confessions waiting for legal advice. "What train ticket?" he asked. "The Hudson Limited. John Carter. Compartment B. I know nothing about it." "You recognized every detail. The newspapers reported them. The newspapers had reported the false name and destination, but not the compartment." "I did not tell him. Instead I said, 'Who gave you the 5 new $20 bills?'" His face lost color. "I want a lawyer." That is often the first sensible request in an interview. I left him with his pencils. At 4:15, Stephen Ames arrived from Boston and came directly to the brownstone. He was a thin man with a narrow mustache and the harassed expression of an accountant who had discovered that numbers could kill people. Wolfe made him sit in the red leather chair. "Mr. Ames," Wolfe said, "you examined Mercer Atlantic's accounts at Daniel Mercer's request." "Yes." "What did you find?" "False invoices, duplicate charges, and transfers to companies without legitimate operations." "Who controlled them?" "I traced several to people associated with Harold Dixon." "Did you tell Mercer that Dixon was stealing?" "I told him. The transactions required authority from the financial division." "Did Mercer interpret that as guilt?" "Yes." "When?" "On Wednesday afternoon. The day of the station meeting." Ames nodded. "What evidence did Mercer carry?" "Copies of my report, bank records, and signature comparisons. He also had a statement prepared for Mr. Dixon to sign." "What statement?" "An admission that the transfers had been unauthorized and a promise to restore the funds. Mercer expected Dixon to sign it at Grand Central. He hoped to settle privately. Public exposure would have damaged the company and its shareholders." "Why a railway station?" "Mr. Mercer believed his offices and home were watched." "Who arranged the meeting?" "I do not know." "Did you know John Carter?" "No." "Did you see the steel case after Wednesday?" Ames swallowed. "Yes. Thursday afternoon." That moved everyone's attention toward him. "Where?" Wolfe asked. "In Mercer's study." "Was it open?" "Yes." "What was inside?" "My report and the financial records." "Mr. Mercer was adding the railway ticket." "The physical ticket?" "No. A written description of it. The name, train, car, and compartment." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "So Mercer had the credential details before the ticket was delivered?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "He said Dixon had missed the first meeting, so there would be a second arrangement. Dixon would receive the actual ticket through a messenger. Mercer would keep the matching details. If Dixon appeared or sent someone who knew them, Mercer would know the approach was genuine." I said, "But the messenger brought the actual ticket back to Mercer." Ames looked puzzled. "Then someone redirected him." Wolfe asked, "Did Mercer suspect who?" He said only, "The thief knows the trap." "Trap?" Ames nodded. "The meeting was not merely a confrontation. Mercer had marked several documents. He intended to see which ones Dixon tried to destroy or deny. Did you poison Mercer? Ames stared. No. Why did you leave New York? I received a telephone call Friday morning. The caller said Mercer had named me in a letter accusing me of falsifying the audit. Did you believe it? I panicked. Voice, male, calm, educated. That description had begun to feel crowded. After Ames left, Wolfe turned to me. Bring Mr. Dixon. I called his office. He refused. I called Kramer. Kramer arrived 40 minutes later with Dixon and Pearlie Stebbins. Dixon sat in the red leather chair this time. He looked tired, but not broken. Wolfe placed the financial summary before him. $1,860,000 disappeared through companies connected to your office. I have already denied stealing it. You missed a private meeting with Mercer Wednesday evening. I had no meeting. Mercer expected you at Grand Central. He was mistaken. He carried evidence of your theft. Evidence can be manufactured. The ticket under the name John Carter was the agreed confirmation. Dixon's face remained steady, but his eyes moved toward the ticket photograph. I never agreed to that name. Your mother's family name was Carter. That proves Mercer chose it to point at me. Yes, then perhaps he intended to frame me. Wolfe leaned back. Did you receive instructions concerning Car 9? Compartment B? No. Did you receive a ticket? No. Did you instruct Paul Kent to purchase one? No. Did you know the meeting details? No. Wolfe looked at Kramer. Inspector, asked Mr. Kent. Kramer smiled without warmth. Pearlie brought Kent in from the front room. Saul had collected him after my interview. Kent stopped when he saw Dixon. Wolfe said, Mr. Kent, you purchased the reservation at Broad Street Station. Kent said nothing. You used cash withdrawn from Atlantic Survey and Review. You instructed the travel bureau to hold the compartment. You hired the messenger who collected the ticket. Dixon turned toward him. Is that true? Kent's face had become chalky. I followed instructions. Whose? Kramer asked. Kent looked at Dixon. Dixon stood. Not mine. Sit, Kramer said. Kent swallowed. The instructions came in a sealed note from Mr. Mercer. That surprised me. Who delivered it? Wolfe asked. Laura Vance. Wolfe's expression did not change. When? Monday afternoon. The note contained the words John Carter, the train details, and 5 $20 bills. I was told to make the purchase without using company channels. Why did you use Atlantic Survey and Review funds? I did not know that was where the money came from. The bills were in the envelope. Who instructed you to hire the messenger Thursday? Another note appeared on my desk Wednesday morning. Handwriting? Block capitals. Where was the ticket to be? Delivered. To Harold Dixon's private office. Dixon stared at him. It never arrived. No, Wolfe said. Someone telephoned the messenger company Thursday afternoon and changed the destination to Mercer's house. Who? Kramer asked. Kent shook his head. Wolfe's fingers tapped once on the desk. The ticket was created by Mercer as proof of identity between himself and Dixon. Mercer used Mr. Kent because he believed direct communication was unsafe. But someone who knew the arrangement intercepted the second stage and redirected the ticket. I said, the hidden transaction involved more than missing money. Indeed. Wolfe looked at Dixon. You were the intended participant, but perhaps not the person controlling the fraud. Dixon's anger shifted into something closer to fear. What are you suggesting? That someone used your authority, your family name, your shell company, and your assistant to construct a path leading directly to you? Kramer objected. The money paid Dixon's debts and country property. Some of it, Wolfe said. Enough to implicate him, but not enough to account for the entire theft. Saul opened another sheet. $700,000 went to an account we have not identified, he said. The withdrawals were approved through Dixon's office, but the final recipient remains hidden. Dixon sat again. I did not know, he said. That remains to be proved, Wolfe replied. After Kramer took Dixon and Kent downtown for formal statements, the office became quiet. I looked at Wolfe. The records point to Dixon. Mercer arranged the station meeting to confront Dixon. The false ticket confirmed the meeting. Yet you are no longer certain Dixon is the thief. I am certain he concealed information. That is not unusual in this case. No. Who redirected the ticket? The person who knew Mercer's plan, knew Mr. Kent's role, and could alter the messenger's instructions. Laura Vance. She carried the first note. Philip Grant. He created Atlantic Survey and Review. Paul Kent. He bought the ticket. Samuel. Doran. He knew the company's terminals and railway procedures. Wolfe closed his eyes. Each had a fragment. One possessed the entire design. Outside, the city had gone dark beyond the office windows. Daniel Mercer had believed the ticket would permit two men to recognize a confidential arrangement without leaving written correspondence. Instead, it had become the most carefully prepared piece of evidence against Harold Dixon. The question was no longer whether the trail led to him. The question was who had laid it. Chapter 7. The impossible alibi. Harold Dixon arrived at the brownstone on Tuesday morning, carrying enough evidence to prove that he had been somewhere he had never gone. Inspector Kramer brought him at 11:15, which meant Wolfe was still upstairs with the orchids. Dixon objected to waiting. Kramer told him that the orchids had seniority. I placed Dixon in the red leather chair and examined the envelope he had brought. It contained a railway baggage receipt, a dining room bill from Grand Central, a newspaper purchased at the station, a claim check for an overnight bag, and a handwritten statement from a porter. Dixon sat rigidly. "These prove I was at Grand Central on Thursday evening," he said. "They prove money was spent there. I boarded the Hudson Limited. The train reserved for John Carter? Yes, that was a new version of the truth, and like most new versions, it arrived after the older ones had failed." "You denied knowing the arrangement," I said. "I was protecting Daniel Mercer's confidence." "Mercer is beyond embarrassment. The company is not." I picked up the porter's statement. It declared that a man answering Dixon's description had entered through the lower gate shortly before the train's departure and had been directed toward Car 9. "Why did you travel under a false name?" I asked. "I did not. Mercer used the name as a signal, but the compartment was intended for me." "Where is the ticket?" Dixon looked toward the office door. "The police found it in Mercer's pocket. That makes boarding difficult." The porter knew me. He allowed me through after I explained that Mercer retained the ticket. "Did the conductor see you?" "I remained in the private compartment. All the way to Albany?" "Yes." "What time did you arrive?" "Shortly after 2 in the morning." "Where did you go?" "To the Albany offices of Central Freight Insurance." "At 2 in the morning?" "I had access to a private room there. I slept until 6. "Witnesses?" "No, that was an alibi designed by a man who disliked witnesses." The elevator hummed in the hall. Wolfe entered, crossed to his desk, and lowered himself into his chair. He gave Dixon one glance, then looked at the envelope. "Mr. Dixon has discovered a journey," I said. "I have remembered one," Dixon replied. Wolfe rang for beer. "Memory-produced receipts?" he asked. "I had placed them in a private file." "Why?" "Because Daniel's meeting concerned confidential company affairs." Wolfe inspected the baggage receipt. It had been issued at 8:26 Thursday evening. The restaurant bill was stamped 8:43. The newspaper carried a pencil mark from the station newsstand. The porter's statement placed Dixon at the lowered gate at 11:28, 12 minutes before departure. "If this is true," Wolfe said, "why conceal it?" Dixon's hands tightened on the arms of the chair. The police had found the ticket on Daniel's body. If I admitted the compartment was intended for me, I would have become their principal suspect. "You are their principal suspect, because you have arranged it." Wolfe's brows rose slightly. "I have arranged nothing except lunch." Fritz entered with beer. Wolfe poured, waited, and drank. Dixon watched him with the impatience of a man whose innocence had a schedule. Kramer stood beside the bookshelves. "Dixon says being on the train proves he could not have killed Mercer," he said. "No," Wolfe replied. "It would prove only that he entered a train after Mercer died." Dixon leaned forward. "The poison may have been administered after I left the house. Mercer collapsed at 9:05. The Hudson Limited departed at 11:40. I was at Grand Central before 9. Your dining receipt is stamped 8:43. Yes, Mercer's house was less than 15 minutes away by automobile." Dixon looked at Kramer. "This is absurd." "I checked my bag at 8:26, ate dinner, entered the lower gate, and traveled north. I could not have been in Mercer's study." "You could have checked the bag, eaten, left the station, visited Mercer, and returned," I said. "I did not." Wolfe lifted the baggage check. Who checked the bag? I did. Describe it. Brown leather, medium-sized. Contents? Shirt, shaving things, papers. Where is it now? At my home, Mr. Kramer? Kramer nodded. A man from the squad collected it this morning. Wolfe took another drink. Archie, telephone the railway and ask whether baggage claim number 64 went eat, travelled to Albany. I called from my desk. A supervisor checked the records. The bag had not been loaded on the Hudson Limited. It had remained in the Grand Central baggage room until Friday afternoon, when someone collected it using the claim check. I reported that, Dixon said. The baggage clerk made an error. Perhaps, Wolfe replied. Errors are hard-working servants. The bag's failure to travel does not prove I failed to travel. No, the timetable will do better. Wolfe took a folded railway schedule from his desk drawer. He had evidently been preparing for Dixon's arrival, though he would have called it thinking. Describe your journey, he said. I entered through the lower gate at 11:28. A porter directed me to car 9. The train departed at 11:40. I remained in compartment B until Albany. Did the porter take your ticket? I told you Mercer had it. Did he unlock the compartment? Yes. What happened after departure? A conductor knocked. I told him I wished not to be disturbed. Did he enter? No. Did you order bedding? The compartment was already prepared. Wolfe looked at Kramer. The Hudson Limited did not carry car 9 out of Grand Central Thursday night. Dixon stared. Kramer removed his cigar. What? A mechanical defect was discovered at 10:55, Wolfe said. The car containing compartment B was detached and replaced. The replacement was numbered car 12. I had not known that. Judging from Kramer's expression, neither had he. Wolfe continued. The conductor, porters and passengers were informed. Anyone who actually boarded would remember being redirected from car 9 to car 12. Dixon's mouth opened. I may have mistaken the number. You could not have entered compartment B in car 9. It was removed to the yard before the lower gate opened. Dixon recovered enough to speak. Then the porter took me to the replacement. Which porter? The man who supplied the statement. Wolfe picked up the paper. Mr. Henry Cole states that he saw a man resembling you enter the lower gate. He does not state that he escorted you to a car. He recognized me. No. He accepted $20 from Paul Kent yesterday and signed words Mr. Kent had prepared. Kramer turned sharply. You have Cole, Saul does. Dixon's face changed. Wolfe said, Mr. Cole has admitted that he did not see you Thursday night. He remembered your face from earlier company journeys and agreed to sign the statement because he believed it concerned an insurance dispute. Dixon stood. This interview is over. Pearlie Stebbins appeared in the office doorway. He had been waiting in the hall. Sit down, Kramer said. Dixon remained standing until Wolfe spoke. You purchased the appearance of travel, Mr. Dixon. You did not purchase travel. I bought a ticket. Someone using funds under your control bought a ticket. A bag was checked but never loaded. A meal was purchased, though the waiter cannot identify who ate it. A newspaper was bought. A porter was bribed after the fact. Those objects create a trail toward a train, but none enters it. Dixon sat. I said, the railway checked the passenger list and staff reports after Mercer's murder. No one occupied the replacement compartment. The conductor may have failed to record me, Dixon said. The compartment door was sealed, Wolfe replied. After no passenger presented the ticket, the porter locked it before departure. The seal remained intact until Albany. Dixon looked at Kramer. That proves the railway made a mistake. It proves you never boarded, Kramer said. The silence lasted several seconds. Wolfe selected the restaurant bill. This was paid in cash from the same packet used to reserve the John Carter compartment. Dixon said the baggage fee was paid with another note from that sequence. The newspaper, too. One person or group created a series of purchases designed to establish presence at Grand Central. Anyone could have used that money. Yes, but only you now claim the trail as your own. That was the point. Someone might have planted evidence against Dixon, but Dixon had converted it into an alibi voluntarily. He knew what it had been built to prove. Wolfe leaned back. Why did you lie? I panicked. When? After Mercer's death. The receipts were created before his death. I panicked when I learned they existed. No. You collected them from a private file and obtained a false witness. That is construction, not panic. Dixon turned toward Kramer. Charge me or let me leave. Kramer looked at Wolfe. Wolfe shook his head once. Kramer disliked it, but he did not arrest Dixon. Not yet. Before allowing him to go, Wolfe asked one final question. At what time did you learn Mercer had died? Friday morning. From whom? My secretary. You did not telephone his house Thursday evening? No. Did you telephone Laura Vance? No. Paul Kent? No, Wolfe nodded. Dixon rose and left with Pearlie following him to the door. Kramer waited until the front door closed. You had enough to hold him for obstruction. Then hold him. I want murder. So do I. Kramer sat in the red leather chair Dixon had vacated. You think Dixon poisoned Mercer? I think he prepared to be accused before Mercer was dead. That is close. Close is an inconvenience in court. The telephone rang. It was Saul Panzer. He had completed his interview with Henry Cole. The porter admitted Paul Kent had brought the statement, but Kent had claimed Harold Dixon personally dictated it. Saul had also found the man who checked the overnight bag. He was a messenger employed by a company regularly used by Mercer Atlantic. The messenger had been instructed to check the bag, buy a newspaper, eat in the station restaurant, and leave the receipts inside a rented locker. Who hired him? I asked. A man using the name John Carter. Description: the instructions came by telephone. Payment was inside an envelope collected from Mercer Atlantic's reception desk. Who left the envelope? No one remembers. I repeated it to Wolfe and Kramer. Kramer said. The fake passenger hired another fake passenger, Wolfe grunted. The name had two purposes. First, it authenticated the confidential meeting. Second, it concealed the preparation of an alibi. I sat on the corner of my desk. Dixon knew Mercer was investigating the missing money. Before the confrontation, he arranged evidence suggesting he would leave New York. Yes, but the train departed after Mercer died. It was a poor alibi. Only because Mercer collapsed sooner than expected. That brought the poison back into the room. Dr. Haskell had identified the substance as a slow-acting alkaloid placed on Mercer's heart tablets. The dose could begin acting between 30 minutes and 3 hours after ingestion. Mercer had taken one tablet at 8:48, but the murderer might have expected him to take it later, near bedtime. If Mercer had died after midnight, I said, Dixon would supposedly have been north of the city. Precisely, Wolfe replied. The train was scheduled to leave at 11:40. By midnight, it would have been beyond Manhattan. The false evidence was designed for a later death. But Mercer collapsed at 9:05. The dose acted rapidly, or Mercer took more than one tablet. Kramer's cigar moved. Dixon built the alibi before knowing the exact time of death. Yes, that is preparation for murder. It is preparation for suspicion. We still require the hand that poisoned the tablets. I said, Dixon had been in Mercer's study earlier that week. So had others. The alibi points to him. It points to the person who expected to need it. Wolfe opened the folder containing Saul's financial records. There is another defect in Mr. Dixon's story. He says Mercer created the John Carter arrangement to summon him privately. That is partly true. But Dixon knew the precise compartment before the messenger delivered the ticket. How? Mr. Kent testified that the second instruction note appeared on his desk Wednesday morning. It ordered him to hire a messenger Thursday and send the ticket to Dixon's office. That note may have come from Mercer. No, Mercer had not yet decided upon the second arrangement Wednesday morning. He made that decision only after the station meeting failed Wednesday night. Kramer stood. Then whoever wrote the second note knew in advance that the first meeting would fail. Correct. And Kent says Laura Vance delivered the first note. Yes. Did she write the second? We shall ask her, I said. Or Dixon placed it on Kent's desk himself. Wolfe nodded. The alibi and the failed meeting were parts of one plan. Mercer expected Dixon on platform 16. Dixon knew the location, but did not approach. He watched from the stairs, allowing Mercer to see that the meeting had been compromised. The wrong man knew where I would be, I quoted. Mercer believed an outsider had discovered the meeting. In fact, the intended participant was the observer, Dixon. Likely. Kramer said, why not confront Mercer at the station? Because Dixon wanted the evidence transferred into an arrangement he controlled. The private compartment provided a place where documents could disappear, and a false journey could be established. But the ticket was redirected back to Mercer. After Dixon learned Mercer had not placed the steel case aboard the train, he returned the credential as a warning and attempted to frighten Mercer into delaying action. "Instead, Mercer called you," I said, "and died." Wolfe closed his eyes. The pieces were no longer scattered. Harold Dixon had motive through the missing money, knowledge through the company accounts, and preparation through the false railway trail. He had known the station meeting would fail because he had deliberately refused to appear. He had claimed a train journey that the timetable and sealed compartment proved impossible. Yet Wolfe was not satisfied. I knew the sign. His lips were moving slightly, pushing outward and returning. Somewhere behind his closed eyes, facts were being placed in rows and inspected for insolence. After nearly a minute, he spoke. "Archie, bring Miss Vance, Miss Mercer, Mr. Grant, Mr. Doran, Mr. Kent, Mr. Dixon, and Mr. Ames here tomorrow evening at 9. The traditional crowd? Yes. Kramer? He will attend." Kramer said, "You have not asked me. I am sparing you the effort of agreeing." "What happens tomorrow?" Wolfe opened his eyes. "Mr. Dixon's journey will reach its actual destination." Kramer left to arrange surveillance on Dixon. Saul continued, tracing the unidentified account that had received the largest portion of the stolen money. I looked at the unused ticket photograph. A ticket could establish that a man paid for passage. A receipt could establish that someone checked a bag. A restaurant bill could establish that a meal was purchased. None could prove a passenger boarded a train. Harold Dixon had constructed an alibi from objects because objects did not argue. He had forgotten that timetables did. Chapter 8. Wolfe solves the journey. At 9 o'clock Wednesday evening, Nero Wolfe's office contained one imaginary passenger, 7 nervous citizens, 3 policemen, 2 private detectives, and a train ticket that had never traveled farther than Daniel Mercer's coat pocket. The ticket lay beneath the lamp on Wolfe's desk. Harold Dixon sat in the red leather chair. He had arrived with Philip Grant, though Grant had made it clear that he represented Mercer Atlantic Shipping and not Dixon personally. Samuel Doran occupied a chair near the bookshelves. Laura Vance sat beside my desk, looking pale but composed. Laura Mercer had taken the chair nearest the globe. Paul Kent sat alone near the wall. Stephen Ames, the outside accountant, watched him with professional distrust. Inspector Kramer stood to Wolfe's right. Pearlie Stebbins remained near the office door. Saul Panzer waited in the front room, out of sight. Dixon looked around. "Is this a police inquiry or a performance?" Wolfe entered from the hall at 9 exactly. He crossed to his desk, lowered himself into his chair, and inspected the gathering. Fritz followed with beer, placed the bottle and glass before him, and departed without giving the suspects the satisfaction of curiosity. Wolfe poured. "This is neither an inquiry nor a performance," he said. "It is an explanation." Dixon gave a thin smile. "Of what?" "Mercer. And why you invented a passenger who never boarded his train." The smile disappeared. Kramer shifted his cigar but said nothing. Wolfe drank beer and settled the glass on the desk. Daniel Mercer discovered that money had been stolen from Mercer Atlantic Shipping over a period of several years. The total identified exceeds $1,800,000. Additional losses may yet be found. Doran looked toward Dixon. Dixon said, "We have heard this before. You have denied it before. Repetition has not improved the denial." Wolfe opened one of Saul's folders. The money moved through false consulting companies, duplicate terminal charges, invented warehouse expenses, and insurance payments for services never performed. The principal instrument was Atlantic Survey and Review, a corporation without employees, officers, or legitimate clients. Philip Grant cleared his throat. "My office created that corporation through a clerk, but only upon instructions delivered from the financial division." "From Harold Dixon's office," Wolfe said. Grant inclined his head. "Yes." Dixon remained still. Wolfe continued. "Some of the stolen money paid expenses associated with Mr. Dixon's country property. Some discharged private debts incurred by his son. Other portions entered accounts controlled through his nominees. $700,000 passed into a concealed account, which Saul Panzer identified this afternoon. The door from the front room opened. Saul entered carrying a bank folder. He placed it on Wolfe's desk. The account was held under the name Carter Holdings, Wolfe said. Its beneficial owner was Harold Dixon. Laura Mercer inhaled sharply. Dixon leaned forward. That account belonged to my mother's estate. Your mother died 30 years ago. Carter Holdings was created 6 years ago. That proves nothing about murder. No, it proves theft. Wolfe closed the folder. Daniel Mercer learned of the irregularities 3 weeks before his death. He hired Mr. Ames to conduct a private audit. Mr. Ames found that the fraudulent transactions required access to Mr. Dixon's authority, account structure, and internal approval procedures. Ames nodded. I told Mercer the theft could not have continued without someone at the top of the financial division. Dixon turned toward him. You told him what he paid you to find. Ames's mouth tightened, but Wolfe lifted a hand. Mercer did not immediately involve the police. Public exposure would have damaged his company, endangered the proposed terminal sale, and revealed questionable transactions from its early history. He decided to confront Mr. Dixon privately. Wolfe looked at Laura Vance. You arranged the first meeting? She hesitated, then nodded. Mr. Mercer asked me to leave a message for Mr. Dixon. Platform 16 at Grand Central, Wednesday evening. Did you speak directly with Mr. Dixon? No, I delivered the instructions through Paul Kent. Kent stared at the floor. Wolfe turned to him. Mr. Kent, who first used the name John Carter. Kent glanced at Dixon. Answer him, Kramer said. Kent swallowed. Mr. Dixon. The room became still. Dixon said. That is a lie. Kent looked at him for the first time. You told me it was a private accounting code. You said Mr. Mercer would understand because Carter was your mother's family name. Wolfe nodded. That is the first important point. Mercer believed he had selected a signal meaningful only to himself and Dixon. In fact, Dixon supplied it indirectly through Mr. Kent. Laura Vance frowned. Mr. Mercer told me he had chosen the name. He believed he had. Wolfe said. Mr. Kent placed a note among the audit papers suggesting that any private confirmation concerning the missing account should use the name Carter. Mercer added the common first name John. The finished false identity appeared to be his own invention. I said, Dixon planted the seed and let Mercer water it. Wolfe looked at me. That metaphor is regrettable but accurate. Dixon shifted in the red chair. You cannot prove I wrote any note? Mr. Kent preserved the original instructions. Kent reached inside his coat and removed a folded sheet. I was afraid to destroy it, he said. Kramer took it and handed it to Wolfe. The note was typed, but the paper carried the watermark of Dixon's private financial office. It directed Kent to use the Carter designation in communications with Mercer and to avoid company records. Wolfe continued. The name served as proof of identity. A person who knew John Carter, Car 9, Compartment B, and the departure time could establish that he belonged to the confidential arrangement without writing Dixon's name. Doran said, Why involve a train? Because a railway ticket produces a time, place, and apparent journey. Mr. Dixon needed all three. He looked at Dixon. Mercer arranged the Wednesday meeting to confront you. He carried a steel case containing the audit, old terminal documents, and a written demand that the stolen funds be restored. Dixon said nothing. You went to Grand Central, Wolfe continued, but you did not approach it. You watched from near the platform stairs. That figure was never identified. No, but you knew where Mercer stood, which train he watched, and that he retained the steel case. You later told Mr. Kent that Mercer had refused to surrender the documents. Mercer had told no one he had refused anything. Kent's face tightened. You said he saw me, he told Dixon. You said he lost his nerve. Wolfe nodded. By remaining hidden, Mr. Dixon made Mercer believe the meeting had been compromised by a third party. Mercer therefore abandoned direct contact and arranged a second exchange involving a private compartment on the Hudson Limited. Laura Mercer spoke. He told me the receiver would not need to meet him. Yes, the documents were to be placed in the compartment. The actual ticket and matching reservation details would authenticate the person entitled to retrieve them. Kramer said, Dixon arranged the ticket himself, through Mr. Kent and a messenger. He used cash taken from Atlantic Survey and Review. He requested the lower gate, where ordinary witnesses would be few. At the same time, he created a trail suggesting that he intended to travel. Wolfe indicated the receipts. A bag was checked at Grand Central. A meal was purchased. A newspaper was bought. A compartment was reserved. A porter was later paid to sign a false statement. Each object appeared to place Mr. Dixon at the station. Each object placed someone there, Dixon said. Correct. Not you. Wolfe leaned back. The bag never entered the train. The restaurant waiter could not identify you. The newspaper seller remembered only a messenger. The porter admitted he never saw you that night. Most damaging of all, Car 9 was removed from service before departure and replaced by Car 12. Dixon's jaw tightened. Anyone who boarded would have known that, Wolfe said. You claimed to have occupied compartment B in Car 9 all the way to Albany. I confused the car number. The replacement compartment remained sealed and empty until the train reached Albany. Kramer removed the cigar from his mouth. No passenger boarded under Dixon's name, Carter's name, or any other name. Wolfe nodded. The journey never occurred. Dixon looked toward Philip Grant. Grant did not meet his eyes. Wolfe continued. The false alibi was prepared of Mercer's death because Mr. Dixon knew he would soon require one. He expected Mercer to die after the Hudson Limited had left New York. By then, the station receipts and supposed journey would place him north of the city. Stephen Ames said, "The poison was on Mercer's heart tablets." Yes. Wolfe turned to Laura Vance. "You concealed one visit from the police." Her face paled. "Mr. Dixon came to Mercer's house at 6:20 Thursday evening," Wolfe said. "Before the family dinner." Laura nodded slowly. "He asked me not to mention it. He said the terminal sale would collapse if anyone learned they had quarreled." "What happened?" Kramer asked. Mr. Mercer confronted him in the study. I heard shouting. When Mr. Dixon left, he said the discussion had been postponed. Dixon said, "I never entered the house." Saul placed another sheet on Wolfe's desk. "The taxi driver who brought you identified you," Wolfe said. "The maid saw your hat and coat in the entrance hall. More important, the house telephone recorded a call from the study to your private office at 6:58. You answered it before leaving. That does not prove poison." "No, this does." Saul opened a second folder. A chemical supplier sold a small quantity of the alkaloid found on Mercer's tablets to Atlantic Survey and Review. The package was delivered to your private office. Mr. Kent signed for it. Kent said, "Mr. Dixon told me it was for testing warehouse pests." Dixon's face had become grey. Wolfe's voice remained calm. "During your confrontation with Mercer, you stood near the coat rack and medicine cabinet. Mercer left the study briefly to summon Miss Vance. You opened his silver pillbox and replaced 2 tablets with poisoned ones." "I did not." "You knew his habit. He took a tablet when agitation affected his heart. You had just supplied the agitation." Wolfe looked at Kramer. "Mercer took one at 8:48. The dose acted more rapidly than Dixon expected. Mercer collapsed at 9:05 hours before the train's departure." Kramer said, "That ruined the alibi." "Not entirely. Mr. Dixon still hoped the receipts, baggage check, and compartment reservation would establish preparation for travel. He intended the physical ticket to complete it." I looked at the pale railway sleeve beneath the lamp. "The ticket delivered to Mercer?" "Yes," Wolfe said. "Dixon arranged for the messenger to take it to Mercer's house as confirmation of the second exchange. After Mercer became incapacitated, Dixon intended to recover it, board briefly, or have another person present it at the lower gate. A used ticket would have supported the claim that its holder had entered the railway system." Dixon's hands gripped the chair arms. "But Mercer died too early," Wolfe continued. "The household filled with police before Dixon could retrieve the ticket. It remained in Mercer's coat pocket," Kramer said, "and since it was never punched, stamped at the gate, or collected by the conductor, it proved no journey occurred." "Precisely. The unused ticket exposed the alibi," Laura Mercer said. "It destroyed it," Wolfe replied. "A used ticket might have supported uncertainty. An unused ticket found on the dead man proved that Mr. Dixon's supposed credential had never accompanied him." Dixon stood. Pearlie moved away from the door. "This is an elaborate fantasy," Dixon said. Wolfe looked up at him. "Then explain how you knew the ticket had not been punched." Dixon stopped. No one spoke. Wolfe continued softly. "When Inspector Kramer questioned you yesterday, he said only that the ticket had been found in Mercer's pocket. You replied that Mercer had retained it before you boarded. You also said the conductor failed to collect it. That was obvious. No, a ticket may be punched at a gate, marked by a porter, or recorded by the conductor. Its unused condition had not been disclosed. Yet you knew it was untouched, because you had arranged the plan and failed to recover it. Dixon looked toward the door again. Kramer stepped between him and Pearlie. Wolfe opened the final bank folder. Carter Holdings received $700,000. The account carries your private signature code. Atlantic Survey and Review purchased the poison. Your assistant arranged the ticket and false receipts under your instructions. You watched Mercer at the station, visited him before his death, prepared an alibi for a journey you never made, and revealed knowledge of the ticket's condition. Dixon's shoulders dropped. For several seconds he remained standing. Then he sat. It was not supposed to happen that way, he said. Kramer's voice was flat. How was it supposed to happen? Dixon stared at the ticket. Daniel was supposed to take the tablet after 11. He usually took one before bed. By then I would be recorded at the station. The train would leave, and everyone would believe I was aboard. You stole the money, Kramer asked. At first I borrowed it. The terminal investment was failing. I intended to replace everything. 6 years is a long loan, Doran said. Dixon ignored him. Daniel found the accounts. He wanted a confession and complete repayment. He said he would give me one night. So you poisoned his tablets, Kramer said. Dixon closed his eyes. Yes. And the ticket? I arranged it. I meant to take it from his coat after he became ill. I would use the lower gate, show it to the porter, and leave the train at the yard if necessary. But Daniel collapsed too soon. By the time I learned, the police were in the house. The steel case, I asked. In a locker beneath the North River terminal. I took it after watching Daniel leave Grand Central Wednesday. I had a duplicate key. Kramer nodded to Pearlie. Pearlie approached with handcuffs. Dixon looked at Wolfe. You could not have known all of it. No, Wolfe said. You supplied the final portions. Kramer took Dixon into custody. Paul Kent was told he would remain available as a witness. Grant left with the expression of a lawyer, calculating how many clients had just disappeared. Doran went to telephone the company board. Stephen Ames departed with Saul to identify the terminal. Laura Vance paused beside my desk. I should have told the police about Dixon's visit. Yes, I thought I was protecting Mercer Atlantic. Companies are poor at thanking people. Laura Mercer was the last guest to leave. She looked at the unused ticket before Fritz showed her to the door. When the office was empty, I picked up the evidence envelope. One imaginary passenger, one imaginary journey, and one real murderer. Wolfe reached for his beer. Mr. Dixon relied upon objects to testify for him. A baggage receipt, a meal check, a newspaper, and a railway reservation. They nearly did. Objects answer only the questions properly asked. I looked at the ticket. So John Carter never existed. He existed sufficiently to frighten Mercer, mislead the police, and tempt Mr. Dixon into claiming a journey he had not taken. The passenger who never boarded caught him. Wolfe closed his eyes. No, Archie. The empty compartment caught him. An imaginary traveler may go anywhere, but he cannot leave evidence of arrival. I considered arguing that the ticket had done most of the work. Instead, I let him have the last word. The train had reached Albany without John Carter. Harold Dixon was beginning a different journey, and this time Inspector Kramer had made certain he boarded.